Were you surprised how well we could listen? When you want to, you can listen well, can't you? You can't though when you're using a keyboard at the same time, or Googling something on your phone at the same time, or replying to a text message from a girlfriend or boyfriend at the same time, or trying to do two things. So we've been brought up, all of us, and in the business world, we've been trained to multitask. Yeah? You've been trained. You must learn to multitask. You must learn to do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 things at the same time. You need to be productive. They're the words that we've got brainwashed. It's all subconscious, right? Somewhere in our head is we need to multitask, but when you multitask, you can't multitask and listen. It's the skill that must be on its own. You can't. That's why you can make a call to a call center. Haven't you had to call an airline or a bank and you can tell that the person's not really listening to what you're saying? Like they're really not getting what you're trying to say. Can you tell when that happens? How can you tell that someone's not listening to you?
They ask the wrong questions.
Yeah, it's the questions, isn't it? It's the questions that you get. So you've just had to learn to listen. So what do you take away from that activity? If we're talking active listening skills, what can you, I could leave now and just say, you did what I wanted you to do. I finished. What could you take away from what we just did?
You have to make the time to do it, and you have to be fully invested in the moment.
You must give it time. You must allocate. You must be present is a good word. You must be present. And you have to give it the energy. You can't sort of go, I don't really care. You know, we talk about asking questions and you need to be ask open-ended questions. And you can't want to be asking questions and then not care about what the answer is. So Nathan, I say, oh, I'm going to ask you lots of questions. How do you feel? And what are you doing today? What are your plans? And he starts to talk and I go, oh, I don't have time. I'm leaving now. It doesn't work that way. You've got to give time. You've got to stop and say, it takes a minute extra. But when you're trying to multitask, it doesn't fit, does it? So you've got 2 choices. You can either be a very good multitasker or you can do things well. They're not always mutually, they're not always together. What else can you take away from that activity? Tell me one more thing. Is that all? Was that just that it takes time? Is that all that you
It's helpful to other people.
How?
They feel appreciated.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think just a better understanding through questions, because sometimes the words that people use might not clearly communicate what they're trying to say.
Okay. Out of 100, so if I've got a pipe, so you're all accountants, you like this, it fits into your skill set.
Yeah.
So out of 100, if I've got the words I use, the tone of my voice, and the body language, how much percent of each, to make up the 100 obviously, do you think each of those takes up in a message? So I'm now talking, right? I'm now talking. How much out of 100, in terms of what you take away and the importance, what you're learning and what you remember, how much do you think are the words, the tone of my voice, and the body language? Which of the 3 do you think is the most important?
Well, verbal communication is less than what, 17% of.
So verbal being the words, but verbal's also the tone of voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The nuances and the
Yeah.
loops in your conversation.
So which do you think of the 3 is the most important, Renee?
Body language.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Because from someone's body language you can tell if they're interested or not interested.
How?
Eye contact. If they're not interested, they might be, I don't know, slumped over.
I knew you'd come and use it. The words that we use is about 7 or 8% only. It's only like 7, you're 100% right. The words that you use, the actual words, are less than 10%, probably 7 point something percent. The tone of the voice is 17 to 20%. What that means is the pitch, the tone, it's not the actual words I'm using, but the way I'm using my voice, if that makes sense. And the body language is in the 70s. That's hugely important for us, isn't it? Where we talk about communication skills. Can you tell me why? Like, why is that interesting for you?
Because you vibe off them, like in regards to if they're engaged, you feel like you can share more and open up a little bit more as well.
Okay. Okay. It's important because when I do this and roll my eyes and sigh while I'm talking to you, it says a lot more than what I think it says. Correct? It means it's important because you need to be mindful of what your body's talking every minute of the day. Your body's talking everything you do, your hand gestures, your posture. So body language means facial expressions, eye contact, your posture, the way you sit, the movements of the body. What else? Anything else? And that...
Interpretation of it, the person that's observing you, how do you take that?
Okay, well that then becomes perception in terms of what it means, 100%, yeah. So your body language is in the 70s. That's why people, who here is not from an English-speaking background? That's why people who come to an Anglo-Saxon country and it's from a non-English speaking background find humour and sarcasm hard to understand. Does that make sense? The reason humour, am I right in saying that? Jokes and humour are a little bit sometimes hard to understand when you're not from that background, because sarcasm, the words and the body language don't match. Make sense? So I can be a smart ass, I can say really funny, I can sort of be sarcastic and nasty, but with a smile on my face. So sarcasm is hard to read. Am I right?
You get it with time.
Yeah, but what about it at the start though?
No, I
Yeah.
start good.
Yeah. Humour, the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why is that difficult for people? Because the body language doesn't match, it's not congruent. Your body language needs to match the words that you're using. Renee, how do you do that? How do you make sure that your body language is what you want it to be? It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
How do you make it be?
I guess just being in the moment. Yes.
Okay. Being mindful.
Yeah.
Being mindful means being aware, self-awareness, being mindful. What else?
Maybe that person is busy and that's why they've got bad language or whatever. Maybe it's that mindfulness of being able to turn around and go, "Look, it's not the best time to talk to them right now, but maybe in a few hours' time I can book in a time with them or I can see them after work or whatever, and I'll get a much more pleasurable experience."
Positive.
Positive. Well, you know.
I don't know if it'll be pleasurable.
Sorry. Okay, well, you know what I mean.
I don't know if it'll be pleasurable, but a positive. Yeah,
I just like to make people laugh.
But you did. See, and that's body language and that's communication, do you see? So your example is good for a lot of reasons. So 100% right that what you do is you learn. If you don't know, firstly, go and learn. Learn what body language means. Learn how to control body language. Do research. You can't just expect to know things without doing any work on it. Do you know what I mean? It's a developable skill. Some people's posture is really great and other people's isn't. You can learn. It takes effort. All of it takes effort. So one is learning. The other point, what was your name? Simone. The other point that Simone made that was very, very valid was some of this conversation is about boundaries and having honest conversations. So boundaries and conversations being learning how to say no, learning how to have boundaries with people. Boundaries is lines that you don't cross. So if it's not a good time, rather than try to give you my attention and it comes across not great in terms of positive, to say, look, now's not a good time. Can we make a time in an hour? Are you free in 10 minutes? Can we make a time for tomorrow? Do you see what I'm saying? So being honest and having honest conversations. Okay, good. What else did you learn What else can we learn about listening? When we want to listen, we do listen, yeah? So what does that mean? What I've just said. When we want to, we can do it very well.
We're good listeners.
We're all good listeners, aren't we? We're all good listeners. Did anyone feel not heard? Did anyone feel, no one ever says, so everybody feels heard. So we're all good listeners, yeah? So what's the problem then if you're all good listeners?
We're busy.
Yeah. Make time. You're busy. You can't do everything at once. Something has to suffer. The email can wait, but the conversation you're having with someone can't. So in terms of active listening, one of the biggest things that you can take away from today, I hope the one thing that you can take away from today is, do you listen to understand or do you listen to reply? Take that away for a couple of hours and mull it over in your head. What do you think, Tom?
It says that if we're not trying to understand what they're talking about, then we're not actually trying to help them in any way. We're just more focused on trying to get our point across.
Yeah. We all, this is generalizing, right? But we all have this little conversation. So Renee's talking to me, yeah, good day, how was your weekend, whatever. We all have this little other conversation in our head, and all we're waiting is for our turn to reply. That means that what have you actually, remember you said the question, it was hard to think of it was hard to listen because you were trying to think of a really good question. You do that every day, don't you? So the separate conversation I'm having in my head with myself prevents me from listening to you as well. So do you listen to reply, meaning, as Tom said, I'm just waiting for my turn to talk. That's all really you're doing. You know, you get to talk, people going, They're bouncing, you know, like I need to talk, I need to, and that's what people do, unfortunately. But you can learn to listen properly, you can learn to listen attentively. The difference between hearing and listening, can you hear that quiet for a moment? Listen to the air, can you hear the aircon? Can everybody hear that? That's been on since 9. No one's noticed it, have they? I haven't heard anyone say, gee, that aircon's really loud. But it's been there the whole time. That's hearing. Your ears work. Hearing means that auditory sound is going in your ear and you hear. Listening, the brain, active listening means your brain has to work together with your ears. Yeah? You can't just hear. It's about the brain also playing a role, you're processing. And we'll talk in a minute about micro-counselling skills, but firstly, in terms of learning to, the second part of this is interesting, seeking first to understand and then be understood. I don't know why that's a T. So I'm seeking to understand. Active listening requires you to listen attentively to a speaker, understand what they're saying, respond and reflect on what's been said, and retain the information for later. Keeps both listener and speaker actively engaged. So there's a lot of skills there, and they call those micro-counselling skills. You can break them down into tiny skills I've got written up in green. We'll talk about in a minute. So learning how to actively listen involves six key skills. You've got paying attention, not judging, reflecting, clarifying, summarizing, and sharing. So a lot of it is just being present, yeah? We've said that. Being present. Being present means paying attention, attending skills. So that means eye contact. This is why we talked about body language. Eye contact, like Pooja's nodding her head now. They're all messages that you're sending. Sitting up straight, eye contact. How else do you show someone? How do you show someone that you're paying attention? Yeah, okay. Can you see that? They're called non-verbal cues. You don't have to say anything, but you, Tanya, you're nodding. So, okay, yeah. Can you see that encourages somebody to talk
I
more?
do that all the time.
Yeah, it encourages someone to talk more. You're encouraging someone, you're saying, I'm engaged and I'm interested in what you're saying, as opposed to if you turn your back on them. So paying attention is having a tone that gives the other person an opportunity to think and speak. That's also the 17% or so that comes from tone of voice as well. So the tone of my voice, the speed with which I'm speaking, the pitch, the tone, the rhythm, all of that, the way you use your voice, the way you project, all of that matters. Okay? 2, withhold judgment. So why would that be, why would judgment be in a listening skills discussion? Like, who cares? Why would withholding judgment be important?
Because if you're listening to that person, you want to create a safe space, like so they can open up and not feel like they're being judged.
And that's what you did when I asked you to not say anything except ask one question. Can you see when you said to me it was really hard to not give an opinion? What I did was I took away your ability to make a comment or judge, because we do it all the time. It's called unconscious bias. With our unconscious biases, I may like people with green shoes better than I like people with blue shoes, and I'm not aware of that. Sometimes it's unconscious. We have a lot of these biases that come across in terms of our relationships with people, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender, type of work performed. I prefer tax to audit, it could be anything, yeah? But we all have unconscious biases. What's the trick there? To be aware of them so you can manage them. So, as we said, withholding judgment means you need to make the person comfortable, yeah? To talk more. Carl Rogers had a really good concept they use in counseling and psychology. It's called unconditional positive regard. It's a really great phrase. Unconditional positive regard means I like everyone with no judgment. So when I meet you, I give you unconditional positive regard. So it's positive, I give you every chance in the world, I listen to you, and I'm not judging in any way. It's the idea behind people feeling comfortable to talk. So if you want someone to shut down, make a judgmental comment and see what happens in the conversation. Am I right? Reflect. So when you're the listener, don't assume you understand. So mirror the person's information and emotions. We paraphrase, we reflect. So it's being able to be a mirror because it encourages somebody to talk. It's also forming two purposes there. One is to make sure I've understood, doesn't it? So by reflecting, I make sure that I've understood. But secondly, it's making you or helping you to feel heard. So there's a really good benefit there. Clarify is questioning. And we've talked before, curiosity is a really important skill that we can develop in ourselves, that a lot of people, we don't do it enough. Curiosity, being able to ask questions. And then you've got open questions and closed questions. So open questions, closed questions, having a one-word answer, yes, no, maybe. So did you arrive at work on time? Yes. Open questions need more of a response. How do you feel about that? What did you do after that? What was the reason? It's not yes, no, yes, no. So open questions require a longer, it's a better conversation, a richer conversation. So clarifying, being able to summarize, and then sharing. So it's about understanding the other person, then being understood. So it's sharing your ideas, your feelings, suggestions, because it's a dialogue, not a monologue. Okay? Any questions? No? Okay. Where we talk about micro-counselling skills, I have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically listening and communication is made up of micro-counselling skills. So drilling down, we'll play another game in a minute, but before we do that, attending, listening, empathy, questioning, paraphrasing, summarising, and reflecting content and emotions. That's basically how we communicate, yeah? So attending means body language, tone of voice, being present. Being present, looking at the other person, making eye contact. You can't communicate if you're not attending. 2 is active listening skills, like we said. The brain and the ears working in tandem. Empathy Can someone tell me what empathy means? What does empathy mean? Nathan?
Understanding the other person's emotions.
How does it differ to sympathy?
It's a more sorry feeling.
So sympathy is feeling sorry for someone. Sympathy is my condolences, like at a funeral, yeah? So I feel sorry for you. Can you see that's very different? So sympathy is when you feel sorry for someone. Normally it would be something bad's happened, something really difficult's happened in their life, and you're saying, I'm really sorry that you've gone through that. Empathy is not that. That doesn't, sympathy doesn't promote discussion. Empathy, 100%, is being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes. In psychology, they would say it's being able to identify with the other person's experience as if you were the other person. But the as if is important because you're not the other person. Does that make sense? What I just said? So being able to identify with what the other person's going through as if you were that person allows me to have empathy. But the reason I like that is because as if means I'm not that person though. Step away when you need to. Because that's why, you know, when you're with someone that tells you a sad story, you start crying. That's becoming too emotionally involved. So I show empathy as if I'm going through that, but I'm not going through that. Don't forget that. As a leader, you need to be able to separate yourself from that. It doesn't mean that you're an empathetic person, a very caring person, if you're crying whenever somebody else cries. That just means you're emotional. And probably that means you're too emotionally attached. So as a leader, we need to be able to remember, as if you're the other person, being able to experience what they're going through. And empathy is a really important skill. Empathy only requires sometimes just to be there. People ask me all the time, so Tanya, people say, how do you show empathy? I understand what you're going through. I can imagine what you're going through. You need to be really careful because the mother that's just lost her child being told, I know what you're going through, is not going to respond in a really positive way when she says, how do you know? Has it happened to you? Do you see what I'm trying to say? You've got to be really careful with how you use those words. I know what you're going through. Do you? Have you been through it? So what's a more positive empathy statement?
I can understand.
I can only imagine how you feel. I can understand. Yeah, not I know how you feel, because you don't know how I feel. You haven't been through it. I've found the best empathy statements are often silence, just being there for the person, being next to them, just listening. I actually think that's the best thing to do. You just sit with someone and you're just listening to them. Just let them vent, let them get whatever they need to get out. That's probably the best way to show empathy without having pressure of what to say. Yeah?
And empathy can also, you can also empathise with positive experiences.
100%.
Excitement.
Yeah, empathy is being able to, as I've said, being able to experience what the other person's experiencing. Look, generally we do talk about it, you're right, in a way of a difficult experience, but it could also be a positive experience. Yeah? Questioning skills, so being able to ask open and closed questions, curiosity. Paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means, in your own words, reflecting back what the person said. And the reason I say in your own words is because, you know that game that little kids play when they follow you around the house repeating everything you say? It can be really annoying, yeah? You've all had that experience? Kids just, I don't know why they all do it. Like kids just follow you around the house and you say something, yeah. But it's like mocking. It's like mocking in a way. So paraphrasing means, there's a couple of ways to start a paraphrase. It's really simple. Just to make sure I've understood, blah, 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 blah. In other words, blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense? There's about 3 or 4 ways you could make it easy for yourselves. In other words, just to make sure I've understood, just to clarify, there are ways there. And then in your own words, repeat back. Summarizing, how is that different to paraphrasing?
You're summarising what they've said.
Yes, yeah. It doesn't have to be paraphrasing using any of the words that they used. It's summarizing the whole thing. And then something that maybe you may not be aware of because it's a more complex micro-counseling skill, reflecting content and meaning. What that means is deeper than empathy. So Tanya and I are talking, reflecting content means the actual words that she's using, I'm able to reflect that back to her as a mirror. reflecting meaning goes even deeper. It's when you can say to someone, I'll give you an example. So someone, we're talking and you're talking about a problem. You all do this. And then I can say something like, I think like when you say that, it almost makes me think of I can see that what you're saying is there's a trigger there for you that you get angry whenever. Can you see what I'm doing? It goes deeper. It's extrapolating meaning from something. Almost like you're helping solve something or you're going a little bit deeper. So they're all very valuable, all of these micro counselling skills. What happens is we can learn to use them in appropriate ways. Okay? So we also have how to improve. So you'll get these as notes. All of you will get slides of this as notes, so there's no need to write. But how to improve your active listening skills. So the question here is, how can I get better? How can I improve? Number one, limit interruptions. That's probably the best thing you can do. Manage interruptions, yeah? You know, I've found myself so many times in the past starting to talk over someone. We've all done that. You know what I mean by that? And then you realize they haven't finished. Like you've started to say what you want to say, but you realize the person's actually still going. So minimizing and removing interruptions. How do you do that? You could, if who's got that as a habit that they tend to do that? Yeah, a lot of them. No, is that all? Just 2 or 3 people. So I found what works there is to be able to just say to someone, have you finished? Maybe not in those words.
What, are you done?
I don't mean use those exact, but that message to be able to say, you know, or allow a gap, or allow a little gap of a second or two, a little buffer just to make sure. So I watch and I see, okay, I think that I can read the body language, you've finished. But what you're basically saying is, have you finished? Like, it's my turn to talk. So you're not talking over the top, right?
I've had situations where I've got in the middle of maybe doing an email to a client who want to get finished and someone comes and wants to have a chat about something, and rather than trying to multitask, which I'm not great at, I would say, can you come back in 5 minutes and then I can give you my full attention.
100%, yeah. So being able to say, that's attending skills as well. So being able to say, now is not the best time if you come back at a later time, and it's also boundaries and learning to say no. So it's a real skill learning to say no without using the word no. Yeah? Because we're scared, I don't know why we're scared of no. Like people find it's very confronting or if I say no, they won't like me. If I say no, I'll get into trouble, especially in the workplace. If I say, so what you can do is learn strategy. So Tanya asks me something, I can say, no, I'm not doing it. But you can see how that sounds. So another thing you can say is, tell them when you can do it. And that's a positive way of saying no without saying no. So Philip, I need this report by 5 o'clock today. I can have it to you by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning because I've got a few things I need to finish. Can you see I've actually said no? Yeah? I've actually said no, but I haven't used the word no. So learn strategies that work for you. The thing is they need to be comfortable as well. They need to sit well. So I tend to focus on what I can do rather than what I can't do, and I found that works for me. So get rid of interruptions. Interruptions are probably one of the biggest things that hinder us being able to communicate. Another one is pay attention to what's being said, not what you want to say. Remember, do you listen to understand or do you listen to reply? So get rid of the voice in your head. Get rid of the second conversation that you're having in your head at the same time as speaking to me. 3, be okay with silence. That's a really important point, that anyone that trains in psychology, counselling, coaching, any of those things, silence is not bad. Sometimes someone needs time to think about what to reply, but have you noticed we're not comfortable with silences? It's awkward. Am I right? When there's silences, so be okay with pauses. You don't always have to have something to say. Be okay with pauses and silences. There's nothing wrong with them. Everyone thinks at different speeds, processes at different speeds. Encourage the other person to offer ideas and solutions before you give yours. I found another really good strategy is speak last, not first. Make sense? You know what I do when there's a meeting? I listen to what everybody else has to say and then I'll give my opinion. Do you know what that does for me? It's smart because I've benefited from all of those opinions. So it's actually clever that you've done that, but it also means I've heard everybody. So it says, aim to do 80% of the listening. Someone I think said that before about how much percent. So aim 80% listening, 20% talking. It's called the 80-20 rule. Restate the key points that you've heard. So in other words, Tanya, I think what I've heard is A, B, C, D. It gives her an opportunity to say, no, you're wrong. That's not what I said at all. And consider revisiting the topic. So being able, you can agree to disagree. It's a really important thing to not need to be right as well, in terms of if we're talking self-awareness. We have a need to be right. You don't need to. It's okay to disagree and to just have differing opinions. Okay? And the last point I wanted to make was, there are different types of listening as well. So different types of listening require different sets of skills. Again, you'll get these in notes. One is informational listening. So informational listening is when you want to learn something, it's about retaining information. So it means basically, I'm listening because you're explaining something, maybe something technical to me. Make sense? And the skills there are that you need to be really highly engaged, don't you? Because you want to retain that information. So you're showing me how to complete a profit and loss statement or a document or something technical, something on the computer. There's a skill. There's discriminative listening. That sounds really awful, but it's not. Discriminative listening is we're born with it because we need to be able to discriminate. You know, understanding the subtle cues in conversations. So discriminate means to differentiate it, to separate. It doesn't have to mean, I know being discrimination has a negative connotation, but discriminative listening means being able to separate and make judgments. That's how you know you're in danger. That's how you know that there's something wrong. You know the feeling that you get? You know, you get a feeling sometimes. You might say it's my gut instinct or it's my intuition. So we're born with that. It's innate within us. That's the second. The third type is biased listening. So this one's not so great. This is selective listening. So how many times I say, I'm having a conversation with Stav and we're talking and then she'll be saying, no, these are the reasons why you can't do this, you can't do that. And I'll take away, oh, she said yes. Because I heard what I wanted to hear. You know, I heard what I wanted to hear. We do it sometimes, don't we? We're selective in our listening. And what it means is you can hear virtually anything in a conversation that you want to hear. You can create a conversation into virtually anything. Sympathetic listening, so it's emotionally driven. So that's where I feel sorry for you. I'm getting emotionally involved. I start crying. I feel really bad. That you've got to be able to separate a little bit as well. So some of these we do all the time. Comprehensive listening. So comprehensive is you develop it in childhood, at work, and in life. You use a combination of discriminative and comprehensive. So it's language skills here. Yeah? Being able to use language skills, knowing how to use language in a really positive way. And it goes together with discriminative. I'm just giving you a list of the different types, just so you can see each one has different skills. And for you to see that we do all of them, would you agree? All of them, we're engaged in all of them every day. But you can learn to manage them. Empathy or therapeutic listening, which is the deepest type of listening. And critical listening, which I think you all do really well. That's more analytical, being able to use reason, logic and reason. Okay? So,